do as much as you can to learn as much as you can. Because I made a lot of mistakes along the way, fumbled a lot of bags along the way. Ruined and wasted a lot of clients' money along the way. Because I was comfortable where I was in relation to the highest potential of the art and the craft.
Mental Health Monday. Mental Health Monday. I should do the intro. All right. Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy Juice Jones from Get Home Safe, here with another episode of Mental Health Monday. Here with my boy Yogi. What up, man? What's good? What's good? Chilling, man. Another day in the office. Yeah, we back. I've been looking to do this sit down with you for a minute, quite honestly. It's but I'm kind of glad we didn't get to do the sit down. I've gotten to watch you progress, work these streets. You cover a lot of ground on your feet, man. I don't know if I ever said that to you, but you cover a lot of ground on your feet, man. It's amazing. You wouldn't think how much. I wasn't aware of the event photography, portfolio photography, portrait photography. Mm-hmm. There's like a different concept in how all of you move.
Yeah.
And
sure.
Like, I really wonder, like, hey, does each style of photography have its own concern and base that it has to build around when it comes to what it's delivering, who it's looking to work with, and how do they define their work? Because I don't think it's always about standing out. Sometimes it's like, hey, did you deliver the thing?
For sure.
And that's what I see you, I see delivery.
Thank you.
I see a lot of delivery. And I just be like, man, are you not tired of delivering? Like, you haven't caught a Charlie horse at this point? Like,
that may be, man. Maybe. You know, it doesn't feel like it at times, right? It just feels like part of the journey. Like when you're chasing a dream. Mm-hmm. I think when I feel fortunate to be able to do what I do and love it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a rarity in society. So I sure, I might be tired. Yeah. I probably am tired.
Yeah. Pulled up tired.
Yeah, for sure tired.
Yeah.
But mm-hmm. I enjoy it. So it's like, you know, what can I do? How can I complain when I got what I asked for?
Right.
A form of bullying, mm-hmm. and probably in like a much more nuanced way, I guess.
Yeah. How can I be a dirty nigga?
Yeah. How can I get away with some shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just never. I feel like when you talk to women and you realize like things that make them uncomfortable, mm-hmm. you're like, why would I want to do that when
the list isn't that big?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Why
would I want to do that when I could make them smile? make sure they're having a good time.
It's funny. It's funny because it's sad how much like there are people that aren't doing those simple things.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like why would you want to do it any other way? That's weird. It feels weird.
The simple things difficult.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And that is also another form of nasty behavior. So for me, when I see someone like you who your focus is on wellness and you're able to build this thing, I'm like, no, I should interview him on that. Like right now, I just did a what are you doing on Saturday? You got any plans Saturday? I know it's very.
I gotta shoot some car stuff on Saturday.
Cool car stuff? Cool as fuck car stuff? Like what kind of car stuff we talking about? You could do me a favor and move to right in front of that.
Yeah. A partner of mine does excuse me.
Car shit.
Does what do you call them? Like car simulators. Mm-hmm. Like
car
realistic car simulators. Mm-hmm. where essentially you sit down in front of like it's a video game, but it's tuned to reality.
Okay.
So it feels like you're really driving the F1 car as far as like turning and the steering and all that. So he does those at
You want some cool shit?
events.
Yeah, that's some cool fuck shit. Yeah. So, what time do you have to be there?
That's morning. I think I'm pretty free after that.
I actually have an event that's going on in the morning, like 10:30 to 12:30. We're doing
it's like 9 11 or something like that.
We're doing we created a vulnerability space last month for men, just to talk about their stuff, and I was proud because like I don't know if you know this about me. I actually try to stay out of niggas' ways. Quite honestly, I'm like, look, if I could just do the cool thing that everyone thinks it's cool, and I'm not in anyone's way, and like that's it, I'd rather do it that way, because what you find is I don't want people to put an unnecessary amount of pressure on themselves to like get help or experience wellness, or to like, I don't want to make something that is average and you can provide for yourself into something heavy.
Yeah.
So what we did was, me and my boy Britt, we came together and we've been creating vulnerable spaces for men, because I'm like, I've been tired of seeing like suicide rate for men, or men don't have a space to talk. And it's like, I could see men not having a space to talk, but I could also see men not questioning why are things set up that way.
Yeah. Just accepting it.
As men, we're good at complaining,
Yeah.
and we're good at coming up with a solution, but we're not good with analyzing what the thing is before throwing a solution at it. We just know, I think in our society, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to men view, I came up with the solution, and the solution worked because nobody was annoyed anymore, or there was now peace. And to me, that's not a solution. To me, you've just changed your environment back to what it was, but you haven't figured out what the thing was that was an issue, and you haven't figured out, all right, now that I know what the issue is, this thing that is the solution takes care of the issue. You feel what I'm saying? It's like putting a Band-Aid or wrapping bandages on a cut going down your wrist, but not actually getting it stitched up, getting medicine, knowing cleaning it, taking showers and just letting dirty water go into it. It's just a different thought. And I think that's where a lot of our now issues are. And it's not just men, but for men's approach and how this has kind of bled into a lot of things. For men, when it comes to problems, that's how we think of problems. But now as a society, when it comes to mental health, we only care about what's going on when the person's having a mental health emergency. And if not a mental health emergency, as long as they're no longer the emergency, we're fine. And it's like, nah, that's like a very small box. You're only checking in to make sure they're no longer problems. You're not checking in to see, do you know the measure of that person getting better, what that looks like?
So you know what's crazy? It's crazy you said that, right? Because I guess for the older part of our generation, our parents' generation, the solution to men don't have safe spaces where men should hang out more.
Yeah.
Which doesn't necessarily solve the problem of a safe space. It could just amplify the lack of safe space, right?
Yeah.
I shot an event with a group of women that's essentially a woman's healing experience.
Was this recently or a while back?
Recently.
Okay.
I've shot three of them now. 3 this year. And like they're in there meditating, sit with your thoughts. How does it feel they do it in like parks and green areas, quiet spaces, and like the amount of vulnerability that these women are coming from, as the guides are kind of talking them through things, was like more vulnerable than I've got to witness before, right? And I kept thinking, like, while we're doing that, I was like, wow, like the cliche, men don't have spaces like this. But it's because the exact thing you just said. It's not. We're not actually finding a solution. We're just moving the goalposts. Just very interesting.
And like, we technically have spaces like that now, but if the person who makes the space isn't boosted loud enough,
Yeah.
the people who didn't know they have access to those things are like, we don't have this, we don't have this, we don't have this, we don't have this. And then people like me, the mature version of me, would have been like, nah, I did this in 2018, 2019, and 2020. Y'all didn't show up.
For sure.
And I have to be mature enough to be like, I'm gonna put that in a cupboard. And be like, actually, I have done this. If you guys want that, we plan on doing this on this, and this for a limited time. But then those folks, because I've had these convos, are like, well, why did you stop? It's like, well, things take money. And if people don't pay, or if I have to spend time making money somewhere else because I no longer have the time or the mental or emotional capacity to do that thing for free, or ask the people who did me favors to do it for free, the community doesn't think we need to raise money for those people and give it to them and be like, okay, could we schedule something?
For sure.
The community is like, you've let us down.
For sure.
It's never, I don't want to say it's never, but seldomly isn't the community picks you up. And after the community picks you up, there's a different part of the community that says, okay, how do we maintain this and what does that look like?
Yeah.
Like, that's why when people get better, to me, that's the most dangerous time. When it comes to mental health and when it comes to wellness. Not because they're finally better, but because there is this sigh of relief and this relaxation of it's finally over. And it's like, no, what if I told you that's actually the beginning? That's actually when things start. That's when the environment of the people around those people now need to start thinking about, for every time I tell someone, hey, go get therapy, am I willing to be a part of their change in their environment? Like, when they go to therapy and they start to realize things about themselves, things about the people around them, if I happen to be one of those people on the list, am I going to be willing to grow with them? Or is it going to be, well, you're no longer a problem, so why should I have to work on what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you approach that? So when it comes to you making vulnerable space for these women and the work that you've done, how have you approached... I don't want to ask you, how do you make it fun? I think you already know how to make things fun. How do you create a space that is safe without having to say this is a safe space for you?
Okay. So for me, I think a large part of my focus in those moments is the work. Like, we're here for a specific reason. Let's make sure we get that. We can make it fun and enjoyable while we're doing that, but that's the ultimate goal. And I think a piece of that bleeds into the focus and keeping the focus on the reason that we're here in this room.
Yeah.
But also, like, so I think a lot of times people look at, oh, they bought liquor, oh, they had weed, oh, they were playing music too loud, oh, there was a bunch of people around. I think all of those are like convenient excuses to prevent people from being accountable on their action, right? Liquor doesn't make you a creep.
Yeah.
What's making you a creep is you, right? So I've had liquor on sets before, and I've also kicked people out of sets for being too drunk on set, or being, not focusing on set, because that can happen too, right? So I think focus is the first part of that solution for me, but also just like my mind doesn't even go into creep shit in those moments. Like it's not like I have to tell myself not to do something because I'm not thinking. You know what I mean? Like I'm not approaching this situation as a how could I get something from her? You know what I mean? That's as far as photo shoots have gone in the past. I'll say that.
Now, when it comes to, that's a good framing, I bet.
Yeah.
When it comes to the steps that go into that, like when you do your setup or when you have your shooting environment, what do you allow and what do you not allow? Like, what have you come to realize, all right, if I do this, people will think this is okay, so we take that off the table?
So I cut out anything but water at this point. Like we're not. Well, you can drink juice. You can.
Yeah.
No alcohol, no drugs. I mean, not doing that because I think I think the alcohol starts because people are trying to make people comfortable. Or at
Which
least,
is understandable.
At least that's the frame.
It's understandable when, like, getting them comfortable is the start.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think that's a convenient excuse for you as your craft because I think what I've learned makes people more comfortable is having a clear vision coming into the space, having something that you really want out of it at the end.
Yeah.
As far as like the creativity part, and being able to share those thoughts and those ideas with the person. I think what makes people uncomfortable is they're not knowing what they're going into. They've never met you before. They don't know who you are. They don't know how you move. So I think if you demonstrate who you are by not being a creep.
Now you gotta say that. You gotta say that. You do have to say that. Yeah.
Coming into it with the clear vision, like this is what I'm looking for out of it. This is how I envision you in this space, in this shoot, in this art, etc. And holding yourself accountable and then sticking to it.
With people that you've worked with from the past coming to the present, do you think you ever had any mentors or people that were good examples of what does self-accountability look like when it comes to your craft, or you kind of had to figure that out as you went forward?
It started out figuring it out on my own.
Okay.
It started out having to figure out what's this supposed to look like. How to elevate the space and make it feel more professional. But I think that's a personal goal thing, right? Like I think my vision for myself in all of this was to reach higher heights. Like not only like I'm not this room right here is not my as far as like photo shoots and stuff goes, this room is not my end goal. I want to be here, right? I look at this magazine. I want to be in this magazine.
Do you want to speak on the magazine that you work for, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just getting to a point of like aspiration, and then realize that maybe I need to change something up, and then you meet people along the way in that aspiration, and you're like, I've been doing this. Not wrong, but I could be doing it better. And then you keep learning how to be better at it. Which I think leads to the magazine, A Dirty Magazine. You asked earlier how I create safe spaces. And I think a piece of me, because I was focused before, I have a goal. I'm looking for this specific thing out of a photo shoot. I didn't intentionally create safe spaces. They happened because I was focused.
Okay. So when your focus is where it should be, the space it never becomes something it shouldn't be.
Yeah. I think that's a piece of it. I don't think that's it entirely. I think I've been fortunate by not being a creep myself, but also allowing people to trust the vision more than they trust me,
Okay.
I think is important, or was important. But with this magazine, a dirty magazine,
How do you pronounce it?
four M's, like something tastes good, something feels good, something looks good.
Yeah.
As I've learned, is a very black thing. I didn't realize that before. I didn't realize that was an us thing, but it's an us
It
thing.
is us thing. It definitely is, because we're good on food.
Yeah,
Yeah, food, recipes, association.
But also sonics. That's we speak through nonverbals a lot, right?
Yeah.
So dirty magazine.
Okay, cool. I got you.
Through doing events with the magazine, I've realized a lot more goes into creating a safe space, having the right people around, setting the environment to actually be comfortable itself.
Did you have to see the production side of things from a company to add it into your own craft, or did you feel when you got there and you started doing work for them, okay, nah, this is a good fit for me?
I think no. I think by the time I got to the company, I think I had been on enough sets and around enough people that are doing it at a high level, to have an idea of like how I can make that my own.
When it comes to that type of high level photography,
Yeah.
what are the bars for, okay, this is a higher level on this side? Like, what defines high level photography?
So, damn, that's a good ass question. I think because there's two parts of that, right? The easy thing would be production value, but that's not necessarily the only answer, and that doesn't necessarily have to be true in order for it to be a professional environment. I think concept or idea. Some kind of pre-production, whether it's like you've discussed ideas, you've put together something for someone to look at, to be inspired by, to come to the shoot with something in mind that they should be reaching towards throughout the shoot. Respect for their time, because holding somebody for 4 hours for a shooting 1,000 images is completely unnecessary.
Yeah, especially if that could have been done in an hour and a half.
Especially.
Yeah.
And it usually can. So just being clear on those things, like have an idea together, have shared the idea with the person so that they can kind of look at, aspire to, know what the intended goal of the shoot is. Production value can help as far as like location, team, styling, like all those things. I think naturally, if you have a stylist, a makeup artist, behind the scenes photographer or videographer, the more people you have on set, the more comfortable I think it is, because it's harder to be a creep with people around.
Yeah.
At least that's the idea.
Yeah, hopefully.
People still get it off.
Yeah.
But the idea is there's more people around, so you can't be a weirdo to me as far as like the subject, right?
And also that goes into the packaging of the experience.
And that goes into the packaging of experience.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing, like people, early on, it's very, you think that people shouldn't bring people with them because that distracts them from whatever. Or you just don't want people around because you want to be a creep, right?
Yeah.
Both of those things are false. You don't need to isolate someone to get them comfortable if you've got concept, idea, you've shared the idea, and they're comfortable with the idea, right? You don't need to isolate them to bring them to a higher place.
When it comes to the clientele, how much input do they have on the conceptualization of the ideas and the shoots?
So I've learned that that's tricky.
Okay.
That's a very nuanced. I think that's a very nuanced thing. I think in this specific interaction, the specific human interaction of a photo shoot,
When it comes to the work you do right now.
when it comes to the work I do right now, or just I think photography in general.
Okay.
If you're dealing with a subject, I think for the most part, people like to be led because they're stepping in front of the camera. They assume that they're following your direction.
Yeah.
So being most concise on your end, and having like the idea down pat, this is specifically what I'm looking for, I think helps a lot. Which is not the same as not letting someone have input, right? So I think if you have a concise idea on your end, you've got it down the way you want it, this is precisely what I'm looking for, you still have to make sure the person's comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm looking at. This is kind of what I want to get. This is really what I want to get right here. This image, specific image right here. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
And then I think typically if it's a good idea, they're like, okay, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. Now, on the production side of things, which is really important, and I like how you've done this breakdown so far, what makes a production a production? Is it the people on hands, or is it when you step into the room, you see lights, you see cameras, you see, hey, they have a table full of food and a makeup artist that's just waiting on you?
Yo, if you come with food, you are winning. You are winning. Because like some of these like super big, high power brands don't have food for people.
Yeah. They just have time and that's
They
it.
just get time.
Yeah.
You should be fortunate. I think both. I think you can be by yourself on a set with lights, camera. This is where you can change. This is where we're going to be shooting, et cetera, et cetera. Can be a high value production just as much as a team full of 10 people all giving you their attention to make sure that you're the most comfortable to achieve a shoot. I think both of those things can both be a high value production.
Okay. Now let's roll the clock back a bit.
It's ambiance.
Ambiance. Very important. It's kind of like why fog machines are important for certain sets. You want to add atmosphere to what's going on and not just the focus of what's going on. What would you consider the type of photography you were doing before you did work with the magazine? Because I don't think I've ever gotten to like talk to you. I just admired the work. It was always executed well. I could tell that there was always joy there, but I wasn't sure if you were telling a story or you were sharing a moment with us.
In my head, so what got me into photography, like really got me into photography, was the allure of fashion photography, like specifically fashion photography.
So you're big on Fashion Week.
Yeah. Because I think there's story in it. I think the images are dynamic in angle and lighting and expression. And I think on a skill level, fashion photography is like one of the highest as far as like understanding the elements of photography.
Okay.
So in my head, I was always doing fashion photography or aspiring, aiming to be, for every photo to be a fashion photo, whether it's clothed or not clothed. That was always my aspiration.
Yeah.
And that's because a lot of the photographers I was looking at when I found photography, I was amazed at how alluring, I guess, captivating the images were, whether clothed or not clothed, and that neither of them I felt dehumanize the person, the subject at all. I think they glorified the best parts and not being funny, like as far as like body parts, but like
No, you
it
made
amplified
that
the
as-
entire image of the photo. So in my head, I was always on fashion photography. Some people would have categorized me as like a boudoir photographer.
And if you were, though, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
There's a space that is necessary.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure, it exists, and it's thriving for a reason.
And I think, unfortunately, boudoir has this. Did I say it correctly?
Yeah,
I think it has this rep that it's been so overly sexualized that people have a problem with other people feeling sexy or folks tapping into what is the expression and the energy behind being sexy and not associating it with, but there's no sex.
Yeah.
It's just that person having the moment that they've searched for or recreating that and it being captured in a photo.
and yes, 100%. And I think a big issue, a big part of that being an issue for a lot of people is because boudoir, if you Google boudoir, it lumps in a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
Some might be artful, some is very artful, and some's not.
Yeah.
I think boudoir as an umbrella took everything nude underneath of it, and everything nude isn't necessarily artful. Right? Some people are just taking pictures of naked bodies.
And they're not adding the lens of their eye to it.
They're not adding their lens of the eye to it. They might not even be. They might not have it even have a perspective. It just might be literally a naked body. You know what I mean?
Do you now? I think making mistakes are very necessary.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
So I think when someone starts things, we have this, as a community in general, we have a preacher's mentality of that is wrong.
For sure.
And it's like, well, to you, that may be wrong, but they would have never figured out what right was if they didn't make mistakes or they didn't at least try.
For sure.
So the question is, when you see someone who's trying to get into that side of the photography, what are usually your 3 questions you ask them if you ever like meet up with them and you get to chat for a little bit?
So this happens often, especially now that I do have the magazine. As art director of the magazine, they come across it a lot more now.
What's our director's job? Because folks will be like, oh, it's in the name, the direction of art. It's like, no, actually, there's more to it than just the name.
So I laugh because it's like, depending on who you ask, you might get a different answer. What's the difference between art director and a creative director? Are they the same, et cetera, et cetera? And depending on who you ask, you'll get a different answer. I think art direction largely looks for, is inspired by, and establishes the overall tone of art.
Okay.
So if, what's a good example? It's the distinguishing factor between brands, right? Like I want our voice to be this. Art director plays a big role in making sure that we stick to that voice.
So if we took Broccoli City for an example, I want to be this would be the flyers to let you know, hey, the event's coming and this is what we plan on doing.
Every piece of imagery that comes out of Broccoli City flyers, when you get there, it's the imagery that you see on the archways, the color concepts, all of that. It's like art direction, keeping that tight.
And the direction would be when you're on stage, you know, this stage that Broccoli City has built in front of us. If we went to other events, like let's say Rolling Loud, that's not what this feel or this look is going to be. That's more pits,
100%.
moshing on a beach, sand underneath your toes.
100%.
Broccoli City is more grass, DC, lower buildings, less skyscrapers. It's an open concept that you may not be used to, but that's what the city is providing you. Also, they have the tents in between for the little small events that are happening in between it that usually funnel into the bigger events too. That would be more of what that is then.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
Like you said, establishing the voice in the field of what's going on of whatever brand.
So you told me that you're now coming across a lot more with the discussions with folks.
Yes.
And the 3 questions that you ask them, or you keep in mind.
What's the point? Right? Like, I think it's very easy with the camera to just take pictures.
Yeah.
But what's the point of the picture? What are you trying to say? Right? What's the story? How well do you understand your light? I think light matters a lot with photography. Huge. I heard a long time ago that as photographers, we're just painting with light.
Yeah.
So I think light matters a lot.
And you've done research into that.
And then who are, and I think this goes for anything that you're trying to do. What blueprint are you following? Right? Like, I think you'd be hard pressed to try to do anything for the first time at this point in the world, right? So like, if there's, you can't, if you're a photographer, there are other photographers that have existed. So have you looked into other photographers? Do you know other photographers? Who are you aspiring to, not be, but emulate? 'Cause I think especially early on, like, you're either unsure of what you're doing, or you're emulating somebody until you find your own. So yeah, those are my 3.
No matter how much no matter how much YouTube University is out there, you do have to put it to practice
For sure.
before you execute.
For sure.
With what you've done so far, what would you say your catalog tells people about your work?
Man, I struggle with that all the time.
Is it because you've done so much?
No, I don't know if I've quite told or said what I wanted to say, which I think might be the point, right? That might be the whole journey is the destination thing. Yeah, I feel like I haven't quite said it yet.
That's not bad though, since you're in the middle of the journey.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
So I guess so far, what do I think it says? I think it says that I have that I'm on a journey with the destination in mind. And I think if you look over the years, you can see me getting closer and closer to it.
Okay. When it comes to photography, do you think there's a space for mental health and wellness in the photography space?
Definitely.
The reason I ask this is, you've heard me say this before when you and Owen came over to the house when I was over off Georgia Ave, and one of my biggest fears was
that 2020?
That was 2020, yeah. But right after the pandemic.
Yeah. Things got real dark.
God. And my biggest fear was the over commercialization of mental health and wellness. And now I see these companies that a new drink comes out, a wellness drink.
Yeah.
An event that's being put together, a space for mental health. And I'm like, when the people show up, are you delivering it? Or are you replacing the words that used to be fun and healthy for you with these 2 words, but when folks come there, they're not correlating correctly. So when it comes to your work, how would you see that be implemented? Because I think your work is one of the fewest spaces that people can discover something about themselves to be proud of.
Thank you.
And you've delivered that.
Thank you.
So I could like say this.
Yeah. So I always look at, especially, I I look at photo shoots with photographer and subject, especially if it's a individual subject, as a conversation or a dance. It's very intimate. It's very vulnerable on both sides, and I think it's very revealing
On both sides.
on both sides.
Okay.
Especially when someone has less clothes on.
Okay.
Because chances are they haven't been in that state around people unless it's personal,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people haven't seen themselves photographed with lighting and background and right the makings of a photo shoot in that way either. Even clothed people, a lot of people just don't see themselves, or they see themselves only the way that they see themselves, not the way the world sees them. So I think there is a bit of sitting with themselves that people do after photo shoots. And on the photographer side, there's a demand for good communication. And if you're not aware of what you want, you can't communicate it.
Can you give me an example of that?
So, did a shoot, what's today? Tuesday?
Yeah, it was Tuesday right now.
Did a
Yeah, it's
shoot
Tuesday.
on Thursday. Shoot went well, but as I communicate, I talk, because I think it can be weird if I don't treat you as a person while I'm shooting with you. So if I'm not able to like talk and like we can have so how long have you done this? That leads into other conversations, right? The woman was telling me that she did a shoot recently and the photographer didn't say a word.
That's cold.
Which made her feel like an object rather than a person.
Yeah.
Which I can understand. And she said he was more introverted as a person in general. So I can also see how that can happen.
Yeah.
But I think again, photo shoots are a dance. It's a conversation. Like, what are you saying to the other person? What is the other person saying to you? And how are you both receiving that? So yeah, I think communication is very, very, very important.
Have you ever walked in on... You work with other photographers? Okay. Have you ever walked in on a photographer's set and been keen to, there's no communication, you're not building a relationship with the subject? Do you pull them to the side, or do you wait until it's over and say, would you mind if I gave you a piece of advice?
Depends on my role for being there.
So roles limit what you can do capacity wise, or your position.
I don't think they limit. But also the thing I never want to do as a photographer is step on somebody else's toes.
Yeah.
Especially in a business that can feel cutthroat at times. So I never want to appear as if I'm trying to steal your client. Because if I don't, depending on how I know you and depending on why I'm at that photo shoot, me telling you something in front of your subject could make them think, well, why didn't I just go to him? So yeah, it depends on the situation. But I typically do tell people give tips and pointers. I've also been part of shoots where, like if the person's quiet and I know the person's quiet and they brought me there to help assist, I'll communicate, right? Which then opens them up, like, oh, I can talk to this person.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's understanding your strengths and weaknesses.
For sure.
And who you are as a photographer. How much,
Because at the end of the day, man, like everybody doesn't quite, what's the best way to say this? Like you said, mistakes happen. People are always learning. And I think a lot, similarly to bartending, I think you can learn a lot about yourself behind the camera.
Yeah.
Who you aren't and who you might need to be. I think they're similar in that, right?
I think one of my favorite photo shoots to date was the first photo shoot I did with Dio. That was my most expensive photo shoot.
He's a communicator.
And money well spent.
Yeah.
Like when I reach out to Dio and he tells me his prices, I usually don't get back to him just because I don't have it.
Yeah.
Like if there was a photographer who I could work with once every 4 months just to keep on track and on brand with seasons, it would be Dio. Right?
Yeah.
And it's not because of his catalog of work and who he's worked with. It's because of what he produces for fun. Dio is a photographer who, before he picked up the camera, he already had the whole room in his head. And when you come into the room, he's just showing you the setup.
For sure. For sure.
And like...
So you asked earlier about mentors. At the beginning, I didn't necessarily have anybody, but he kind of became a mentor in the space because of how he works.
Yeah.
Rooms and like skill level and everything too.
The swag is always on point.
But we joke a lot about like, it almost feels like his goal isn't to take pictures. It feels like his goal is to brighten the room.
It is.
You know what I mean?
It is.
Which helps the pictures.
Or, depending on the set, his goal is to darken the room.
Yeah.
That's what's necessary.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
For sure.
For me and Coop and Ryan, us being a brand on mental health that was a landscape that wasn't built yet on the advocacy side and community outreach, he put together an onslaught of photos. I don't know if you ever saw the photos with like Coop on the ladder. We were like stretching the You Matter hoodies and everything else. And for me, I think that was the first time that I became aware of, hey man, you're handling someone else's brand that you didn't get permission for. How do you make this brand that doesn't belong to you yours?
Yeah.
Like,
Interesting.
because like Meech, who owns You Matter, the past 3 years is the first time I've seen him get the brand right.
Fair.
And that's not a slight to him.
Yeah.
That's more just acknowledging how big the magnitude of what he was handling was, and the realization of when something doesn't belong to you anymore, it now belongs to other people. You do need to have the right team of other people around you to insulate your thought process.
Sure.
And what do they want, and how would I like it to be presented, and who can I put this on, and folks say, yeah, they got it right.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm glad that he was able to get
That's a good way to say
separation
that.
from it. It's true.
Yeah, that's a good way to say that.
Because like when I had it, I think folks see what we do as Get Home Safe as like a clothing brand. I don't see it as a clothing brand. I make clothing for people so they can feel they're a part of what we've done. So the reason I call the clothing merch is because for everything we come up with per year, we have a limited batch. And if you want to be a part of the messaging or what I'm doing or the shorts, here's your way to own a piece of what I did that year. Like I could identify hoodies and shirts and shorts for the next couple of years coming up by what year we did it and why I said, okay, we're gonna do this now. Okay, we're gonna do socks. Okay, all right, let's do full outfits. Okay, cool. All right, let's just go back to hoodies and that's it.
Yeah.
Because like, A, I'm a big believer. I'm not gonna waste my money
For sure.
But B, if I do something, I want people to have access to that thing that has nothing to do with me anymore.
Yeah.
Because I was the messaging, but like their experience is still their experience. So, in what you've experienced, have you ever, does your work give back to you? Because I'm really big on, hey, if I'm going to pour into this, is it pouring into me?
Another great question. That's a great question. Yes. And kind of based on what we were talking about earlier, when I walked in, you really realize how much, right? Like, working 9 to 5 as a photographer is amazing, right? Dream stuff of dreams for sure. Like if you asked me when I started if I'd be working 9 to 5 as a photographer, or if you would have told me that I would be, I'd be like, okay. How? Right?
Yeah.
But with everything that comes with that, I'm not necessarily speaking in my voice.
Okay.
Which has been what I've been doing for all the past years prior.
What year did it start to this point?
I picked up a camera in 2013. I probably felt like I was talking through my work, speaking through my work. 2015, 2016.
YouTube University still wasn't a concept yet.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like you could find things on there, but the idea that you can learn through YouTube wasn't a thing yet.
Different. Yeah.
So I would say 2015 to now, 2022 is when I started working at this company. Did I ever create the technicians that I loved? No. Yeah, I would say 2015 to 2022. Because time just goes to the job at a point. So what is it kind of giving back to me? I don't know what I would be doing now if not for photography. I think I was at a very lost point in life when I found photography. And I became completely enthused and engulfed by photography. I was at a pretty lost place. And even when photography was hard and I didn't necessarily, and I was piecing things together in life, I still felt like a piece of fulfillment, which I think is hard to say when people are down on their luck in most other things.
Yeah.
Like if you're down on your luck in life, looking at it, be like, yeah, but I feel good about what's going on is a hard thing to say. And I think I felt that way at a few points with photography. So yeah, I think it's giving back to me.
Okay.
I think it's I mean, outside of like it taking me places literally with travel, I think it's allowed me to see the world differently. Probably be more empathetic.
That's definitely something we're going to talk about on another episode.
Okay.
Because that's a whole series. I don't know how you felt about the travel and what you were doing, but for me, from a distance, I really enjoy having the If You Build It page, because that shows me all the things that I'm missing from like everyone else's work that I don't get on the Juice Jones page. Juice Jones page is too plugged into mental health and marketing, if you build it, is so inactive that I really get to see like genuinely this is what folks are doing.
Yeah.
Oh, these are their accomplishments. Let me comment. Like, and it's
That's
crazy.
That's dope to have a space to do that though.
Yeah.
To the same point you had with the merch, like the Juice Jones page is kind of not yours anymore.
It doesn't.
You know what I mean?
belong to me. It doesn't
really
belong to me. That the Juice Jones page and Get Home Safe, neither of those pages belong to me.
Yeah.
But like, I don't mind because I was never a social media person.
Yeah.
I was always anything that I do was focused on marketing
Okay.
and messaging.
Okay.
And anything that's personal, you have to have my phone number. And it wasn't built like that on purpose. Like, I was on the phone with my homie in New York, and he was like, "Yo, man, I don't see you putting up any more workout videos." And it's like, well, in 2019, I started the mental health advocacy, and I'm very like, hey, if you do it all the way and do it correctly.
For sure.
And he was like, well, are you going to bring the videos back? I was like, well, there's not really a place for that, because like people may get excited if they see that. But if I try to mix those two things too much, people are going to be conflicted on, so is he trying to give us workout advice?
What's actually
or is
happening?
he trying to, like, you know, keep us where we need to be when it comes to our mental health and wellness?
I don't know what the sweet spot is, but I think there's a sweet spot in that. I think the two can go together.
But then it's like, do I have time to do the edits,
Fair.
at the angles?
Fair.
And do I have time to tell the story correctly? Like, I have this course, the dude that does the edits or used to do the edits for Logan Paul, he's selling a course, and I like talked to my partner about it. I said, hey, I'm about to spend some money I'm not supposed to spend on this course. I just want to let you know. And I was like, I explained, here's the reason why, this is what I'm doing. And right now, I think I'm doing some of the best mental health outreach and storytelling with real people stories and therapist stories and folks in the wellness community, folks that are actually going through it. Mm-hmm. But like, I want to be entertained as much as people want to be entertained. And if I don't feel that from what we're doing, then there's a different way to edit the story to accomplish that.
I'm not going to plug the guy because I don't know if that's what you're trying to do. But
Yeah.
like watching the guy, watching his stuff is very entertaining.
It is.
Damn, I want to be entertained too. I want to get it.
And I'm like, look, if I pay whatever I have to pay to get the course, the hardest part, and I don't take it personally because there's a limit to what my talent is or my focus when it comes to this stuff. But like, I just look to get 20% from whatever I watch and apply it to my stuff. Like 20 to 30%, I think, is the max, because outside of that, you're still battling the core of who you are and how your thing has to look. So when you incorporate things, whether it's change in behavior, whether it's people around you, whether it's how you're moving, you're only allowed to change about 30% of who you are, because your core is still going to be the same. That's just how you're wired. And when it comes to the work that I do, I treat it that way because it's like, I don't want to pour bleach on something that's working well.
Yeah.
Like, it works well, let it grow. You could add a couple of seeds or figure out what insects like help that plant or the soil underneath it grows well. But like, don't drastically change what already has accomplished and fall for what it is.
That's really good advice. Not that you were giving advice just now, but that's really good advice.
Because it's like, how old are you now?
Anything beyond that, you're losing yourself.
Yeah. And like,
And you're going to get lost in trying to be that other thing.
and there's so many things you want to give away.
For sure.
I just, and I'm lucky. I really do consider myself lucky that like I've been in the room so long that like I'm just not missing out, or I don't feel I'm missing out if I'm not paying this price. It's like, nah, you get what you pay for. If you don't got it, cool. If you do have it, also cool.
Yeah.
If you fuck with them, you could work out a payment plan, tell them, hey, 4 months from now, could I just pay everything slowly to get off to it? Like, there's ways to work around it, but it's really about what are you willing to sacrifice. So for me, I know I've done so much great work with you guys, just in general, just like DC, Philly, New York, everything else, that I think my focus is like getting back to the real conversations that I understand people are afraid to have, and put it out there, and eventually people will find the content or they'll come across the right clip, because like Instagram and these platforms aren't really pushing your stuff anymore. So really it's about building a catalog, and when people finally discover you and know who you are, they can study your stuff and say, the person I was complaining about that wasn't there for like half a decade has been here the whole time, and I'm finally coming across it.
Yeah.
That's really how I view it at this point.
Yeah.
It's like, I think the worst thing you can do is have an expectation of somebody. Just whatever they show you, that's what they are. Just accept it for what it is. Like, I'm not gonna complain, oh, but they were supposed to. Well, how many times have you seen them do that? Well, nah, because they always let me down. What was different about today?
Yeah.
They've practiced showing you the thing.
For sure.
Don't try and rediscover the wheel.
For sure.
It's the wheel.
Yeah, like you said. You gotta trust people when they say it.
Yeah.
Like when they show you.
Yeah. And I mean, what you guys do in general, to me, it's I think the hardest thing for a photographer, honestly, is to reinvent yourself. Because people see you as the camera.
Yep.
And it's like, y'all would get so much more done if you actually talk to the person.
For sure.
like y'all, everyone across the board would get a lot more done if they've like watched what you've put out there on social media or gone on the website or see the things that you're working on. Across the board, everyone would be able to accomplish a lot more.
For sure.
Like that series Owen was doing was dope. It was real simple.
To the camera, people.
Just chilling.
Yep.
Talk some thoughts. Every now and then I might do a cut. I feel like putting this out there today. You guys enjoy that? Cool. I got something for you tomorrow.
Yeah.
My page's gonna look the same for a couple of months, but you know what? Everybody enjoyed the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And all I did was I just invited you to one conversation I had today, and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't have to put a bunch of hashtags. Just, did you enjoy what I came up with? When you deliver something nobody wanted but everybody likes, you're beyond the imagination.
For sure.
That's it.
For sure. I'm dropping quotes today. It's like your fourth one.
God damn, my book getting full. What I was gonna say, all right, so when it comes to your clientele, how do you go beyond their imagination? Because working with this company, I think, is, from my limited knowledge of you, I think it's the first time that the tightrope is finally a little bit closer to the earth.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
There's risk in the shoots that you've done and people hiring you and not having a company that says, we understand who this man has been and we can attest that his work is only the deliverables and not what you assume it is.
For sure. Very true. That's very true. It is. There was a question behind that. Did you ask how am I dealing with that? Or you said that I'm a lot closer to earth than I have been.
This is the first time your tightrope is a lot closer to earth than you've been in recent years.
Yes.
From the work that I've seen.
For sure.
So how does it feel to go beyond the imagination of your clients with the work that you do?
Gotcha. So I think whenever you're in a room in general, this is outside of photography, this is just, I think, just life. There's a value you can add to the room. And what I knew, but didn't really like fully understand prior, was that the value exists regardless. Like whether I'm taking a picture in the room or not. Just my eyes on the situation. I'm speaking specifically about the company. Just my eyes on the situation adds value. That might not be there without me. Which again speaks to the full-time situation, but them bringing me on and them seeing that value. So going above and beyond for clients, for me, it was just understanding that I can be me. Um, I do think it can be more difficult, um, depending on what type of room you're hired or what the room is hiring you to be. I think there are what I consider to be hired guns, which is we just need a photographer, um, shoot exactly what we say, get in, get out. Um, there's the conceptual, and then there's like the team player worker. I think depending on which one of those you are, I think it's a lot. I think it's harder to go above and beyond as a hired gun because delivering more doesn't necessarily increase your value if they're just looking for a person to hold a camera and take some pictures or press record. I think maybe being quicker than everybody else can help in those situations. But for me, I think the rooms I've been fortunate enough recently to step into have been more so based on my vision, my conceptualization, my ideation, and my like what I'm able to like bring to life on the back end. A lot of that is just me being me in those rooms and knowing that like it's going to be respected and appreciated and heard.
When
That's a long answer.
I thought that was a great answer. There's nothing wrong with a long answer as long as like did you answer the question?
Yeah, for sure.
Me? When it comes to clients who approach you with a concept that they have to be vulnerable. When it comes to men and women, are your concerns the same, or do you have different concerns for men versus women when it comes to like clients where the shoot may be a little bit more vulnerable and how I may have to handle this?
Yes. I think there's no like generalization on either end. My initial answer was going to be I think as men we're more open and comfortable, but that's not true in general. I've seen that, but I've also seen men that aren't more comfortable, and I've seen women that aren't more comfortable and open, and I've seen women that are. So I guess that all depends. I think the attention should be, especially when you're dealing with subjects and people that just taking care of people in general. Hospitality and service in that aspect is like just creating safe spaces, creating comfortable spaces. Is there somewhere for you to change? Is there seat? Is it going to be too hot or too cold for you? Is it, have I considered food? Food is, I think, it might be one of the most important pieces of especially long shoots. Because if it's a long shoot and there's no food, people's patience is standing with you. Versus if there's a long shoot and there is food, people can be a little bit more patient with you. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think just going out of your way to consider comfort, and understanding that what might make this specific woman, and this specific man comfortable might be different than what I've done in the past.
Would you say comfort and creating comfort is an art?
It is.
I was going to say, I think people that make charcuterie boards would say yes. Yeah, I think so. I think there's I think there's a nuance to it. I think a lot of it goes back to communication. Because you could, I mean, just something as simple as like music, right? You could be thinking you're creating a comfortable situation and you're playing all the hottest hip hop slaps, and this person hates hip hop, right? Now the situation's uncomfortable for them automatically.
Yeah.
Whether everything else is right or not. So I think I think it's nuanced. I think communicating with the people and understanding their needs, their wants, and like what their comfort is. I think it's important.
So my boy Britt and I were working on a project. I mentioned it before, of like creating vulnerability for men to just speak their minds on what's going on, right? Creating a safe space. And you told me about visiting women and being a part of their safe space and taking photos in that wellness event that you have done. That was off camera, of course. We know that what men tell us within the safe spaces we create can never be mentioned again unless we're talking directly to them or whoever was a part of that group. When it comes to your work and you've had clients who take shoots with clothing, without clothing, and other stuff like that, is there a limit to what you share with people within your company, outside of your company, when it comes to the clients and what they've shared with you within those shoots?
For sure. I think there has to be. I don't.
And does that count as privacy?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely counts as privacy. I think that an important piece of intimate work is a respect for privacy, i.e. doctors, lawyers, things that you share at your most vulnerable should be, hopefully, relationships. The things you share in your most vulnerable shouldn't get out if you don't want them out. So for me, like, until a set of images is completely done, unless it's going to an editor, those images don't get shared, solely for the purpose of this person hasn't okayed them yet. And you know, naturally, my aim is to put out photos, whether on website, whether portfolio, Instagram, social media, something bigger than that, whatever the case, right? If you haven't okayed the photos, I don't feel comfortable putting them out. Because if you don't like them, why, you know, if you think you look weird and aren't comfortable with them, and every time you see them, it makes your stomach turn, I don't want them out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that defeats the purpose of what I'm doing.
So your relationship reaches past just the shoot.
Yes. I think that I think I can say for the most part, I've kept, at the very least, respect for everybody that I've shot with. I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that shot with me, unless, you know, unless the shoot went sour for a reason. Like, and this is typically as far as like companies or brands, or a client that didn't feel like they got what they deserved, whether it was negotiated or not.
Yeah. The way you used your hands told me everything I need to know. That told me everything I need to know.
But as far as like intimate shoots, I think everyone has upheld that same level of respect. Like, okay, I have a respect for what he has done. Do you remember? I don't know if you even saw this happening. 2020. For some reason, super randomly, I'm still at a loss for what happened. Somebody was going through everybody I shot with on Instagram. You know how some people have their emails attached to their accounts. They went through most of the people I shot with on Instagram, even my ex at the time, or my still ex, and emailed them a dick pic. Wasn't mine, but it was a similar complexion person.
Hey, yo, I do not. I was not.
Yeah, see that happened?
Nah.
It happened to a lot of people, and yeah, they probably hit like 30, 35 people, like went through all of my Instagram. And maybe one person posted that to their story and said something. Everyone else first hit me and was like, yo, is this you? Because out of that same respect, like there's an understanding that that's a weird move, that's out of character.
That's the value of trust.
For sure.
And you've built your brand on trust.
For sure.
And like, I'm surprised more terrifying things like that don't happen.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, with the world that we live in and how people move.
It got so crazy I tried to go to Catfish. I mean, is that called Catfish? The MTV show?
Yeah, that is.
I tried to reach out to them to see if they could figure out who the person was, but I couldn't get in contact with them.
Yeah.
'Cause I was confused.
What, Catfish?
Yeah. But Catfish.
That would have been awesome.
That
if they would have helped you out. Or at least somebody within their team been like, actually we can, but let me see what I can do.
They only move forward with things that are already solved. Like if you already know who the person was and the person agrees, then Catfish works.
It's always, it boggles my mind when I hit the back end.
Right,
of like how things actually work. Because then it's like, there's a writer room that has to make this interesting.
For sure.
And not just the music.
For
like
sure.
there is a writer's room that has to make this interesting. What's the name of the folks that are protesting right now? What's it called? WAG? The folks, the writers that are protesting.
Oh, SAG.
SAG? Yeah, we stand with SAG.
Yeah, for sure.
Put that up.
For sure.
SAG, not even a question.
For sure.
Yeah, my homie, part of it, she been telling me about all this F stuff that was happening for a while, so I'm not even surprised.
But yeah, it speaks to the trust. It speaks to the level of respect that I think people have kept over time.
Do people make a safe space for you and all this work that you do? Because like, you can't tell me that it's just you deep dive every day and no one's like, nah, come up for here, bro. Like, come on.
You got it.
Do people make a safe space at the shoots? Maybe not as much.
But there are people that are concerned about you.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think there's a community of us as photographers that are thoughtful, i.e. like a Owen or Dio, or just other people that I've met throughout this DC space.
I appreciate that. I'm glad I made the list.
Yeah, I think every time I see you, we have a long conversation every time I see you. Yeah, I think there are people that do care about that aspect of it. And there's clients here and there that go above and beyond to do that too.
Okay.
But I think for most people, we're a service that they enjoy.
Would you like to see more of that? The first half, not the service that they enjoy. Like, would that make a difference to the feel of your work? Because no one's questioning the work ethic. I think questioning work ethic at this point would be useless. But I do question the longevity of people's work, and if the environment was better, how much more could be accomplished.
Yeah, I think I think understanding that no matter how much you love our work, no matter how dope of a life it appears that we're living on social media, people are still human, and there are bad days, there are good days, there's mundane days, and just, I think, understanding that even though a photo shoot is about you, that person's life is not about you. And just I think being empathetic on a human level helps a lot.
Okay.
I think even if there's not like a go out of your way act to do it, I think being understanding of people's time, respectful of their mental space that they've given you to do this shoot or this service, I think is important.
Okay. What's a word of advice you would give to a young lady who's looking to do a shoot and it's probably going to be in a vulnerable space? Or do you consider all shoots a vulnerable space?
I think all photo shoots can be a vulnerable space, but there are ones that are especially vulnerable spaces. I think ask questions. I think the nature of what we do, depending on who the person is that you're shooting with, can come off as like there's a hierarchy to it. Like this is this great person, and you're this you could see yourself in that situation. Excuse me. That's a lower person on the totem pole on the social food chain. So I think asking questions and not being afraid to ask questions helps. I think a lot of these situations could be avoided. A lot of the situations, the sticky situations, the icky, creepy situations that we've heard could be avoided by more questions being asked. Why do you want me to take more shots? Why can't I bring a friend? Why can I only come at midnight? You know what I mean? Just, I think certain questions make it harder for somebody to be a creep.
That last question was a thing?
I remember when a few of these different whistleblowing situations came out where stories are unrolling, and people could only shoot at midnight or after.
Crazy.
Yeah. Or like even to the shots part, like people are forcing people to drink and forcing people to smoke, and like I think a lot of that is like a simple "but why" will let you know who that person is. Right? If you're trying to get me to take a bunch of shots and I say I'm good, but you keep forcing, and I'm like, but why? Their response has to be something that makes sense in my head for me to move forward, right? Otherwise, you've given me enough to be like, I'm cool. You know what I'm saying? So I think more questions is a very important one. I think same thing that I mentioned that I ask photographers. Where's the shoot going? What's the vision behind it? Because if they haven't thought of the vision, you've put it on them to, I hope, think about it now. And again, if you don't like that answer, that lets you know whether or not you need to move forward. And then like, where's this going as far as like, is this something anyone's ever going to see? That says a lot about something too, I think. If on the photographer side, if you don't want to put it out, it's either because it's bad and you know it's bad, or this isn't something you're actually pursuing, which again says a lot. So I think just asking more questions.
Okay. Now, when it comes to men and vulnerable spaces, what do you think their concern should be when it comes to going into a photo shoot?
Definitely the same questions. I think, as a man.
Our concerns are different.
Yeah, yeah.
Like for me, I don't get to D-size. I'm large
Yeah.
in every room that I go in. So I'm funny as a mechanism, not as a, this is who I'm always am. I get to be funny with my friends.
For sure, for sure.
With you guys, I get to be funny. That's enjoyable. But there's certain rooms where if I'm funny now, that takes away from them having to be uncomfortable when I decide to stop talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So by that, then I would say that's a hard one to say though. Because that's what you just said is a very self-aware assessment. So I guess being self-aware is important as a man in general. But especially when coming into vulnerable spaces.
Yeah.
I think being open and willing to input helps. Like as far as like being a listener, listening to what others might perceive of you, which I think goes to the self-awareness too. And also just ask questions. You know, I think if you're in a situation that you deem to be uncomfortable, or that you might be perceiving to be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and you're able to, hey, it's not my intention. Are you comfortable? Are you good? Checking on people, I think, is important too. Yeah, I think just I think a lot of all of this, I think, goes back to like communication and empathy. Like if you're able to communicate, I think it cuts down some of it, but also understanding that a person doesn't see something the way you see it, or might not see it the way you see it.
Yeah.
And talking through that, I think, helps a lot too.
Okay. Now, you've done shoots, you've traveled.
That's interesting. I don't know if I've
Thought about it from the male perspective.
yeah, I thought about it from the male perspective, or if I've worked. No, I lied. I have worked with a male that I could tell was uncomfortable. And
For him?
For him.
For you?
For him.
Okay.
First time really in front of a camera in that way. Didn't perceive himself to be in front of the camera type. But yeah, communication would help through that process.
Yeah. I think the work you're doing right now is necessary, but in like a completely different way.
Okay.
I'm big on implementation.
Okay.
Right? So in the work that I do with this, I get to give folks advice, and I get to do sit downs with you guys because like your stories are where the answers are, whether you see it or not. And when I get the answers, I get to highlight that. But for you, in terms of where things can be implemented, I thought, and I think it's important for people like you to have an interview because you technically do the work that everybody claims they do. We make a safe space, do you?
Yeah.
we're creating an experience that brings mental health and wellness. Are you sure about that?
Right.
Well, I've done all this work professionally, so hospitals are very cold places.
For sure.
Just naturally in the structure and the lighting. It's just the truth.
That's
naturally
true.
in the structure and the lighting, hospitals are very cold places.
Extremely.
Down to the seats you sit on before getting put on a very uncomfortable bed that you have to stay on.
And it's usually actually cold in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've seen so much vibrance in your work. I sometimes wonder, like, hey, can I reach out and ask you for advice on, like, how can I make the thing that's a safe space a better space? Because making something a safe space isn't the complete version.
Right.
Safe space is just a moment.
Yeah.
So how do you either create something that could be more perpetual, or how do you create something that other people can recreate themselves, and they no longer need somebody like me to tell them how to do it,
Right.
or how to advise it? Now, most people would be like, oh, you could sell it. You can. But sometimes not everything needs a price. If you do enough work, the right people are going to reach out to you to pay you anyway.
For sure.
So I'd rather reach out to the folks who I think are doing what I'm doing, but in a different capacity, and talk to them and see what do I need to implement and keep in mind for what we do.
Yeah.
Especially as we move into making co-ed spaces for men and women to have discussions on what mental health and wellness looks like. And I'd be better off asking you directly than just assuming what it is that you do and applying it to my thing. Oh, that thing turned off. That thing was like, I'm hot. But you see how it turned off? That means that they're saved correctly.
Yeah. It went through the whole shutdown process.
Yeah, because it heard me bitching. So with that being said, have you ever thought about your work that it creates a safe space and vulnerability? Or have you just viewed the work that you've done as, I'm glad I have an opportunity to bring this to life? And what are the other spaces that I could bring this to life in?
I think the way I have viewed myself, and even considering it a safe space, has only been in contrast of the negative stories that I've heard.
Okay, so the comparison.
The comparison.
Of what's going on out there.
Like, oh, I don't do that. I know I don't do that.
Yeah.
That, and just the, like I said, the trust that people have of me, even when it could very well not, like that 2020 situation very easily could have been a viral,
Yeah.
get Yogi the fuck out of here.
Yeah. But you've always kept the focus, and the reason you have focus is because your intentions have never been in the wrong place.
For sure. So yeah, I haven't really actually it might not have been until this year when we're throwing events for the magazine that I even realized, oh, this is a consistent thing that people show up and feel safe and comfortable enough to be vulnerable.
It's sad that harassment on a consistent basis has made the space that we make necessary.
Yeah.
I think about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, one thing wouldn't exist without the other.
For sure.
Or the popularity in something going up is happening because something is wrong here, and
For sure.
it's everywhere.
For sure.
So, like chickenpox.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is very necessary. I would even go as far as saying like, I think one thing that can aid in creating a safe space is not being monotone in gender.
What do you mean?
Like if I'm doing a photo shoot with a woman or multiple women, specifically, probably more specifically, one woman. And speaking back to like production value and like what is a high value production look like?
Yeah.
If the team's all guys, she can still be very uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, You see my reaction?
Yeah,
I think about those things and like, why wouldn't? It's like, no, there's a lot of places that it is all guys.
For sure.
But it's a woman on the shoot.
Or even the flip side, right?
Yeah.
It's a woman shooting and it's all woman team and it's one guy. That could also be very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I just think understanding, try to mix it up, just give a little variety.
Okay.
Even, deeper on a deeper side, it's having people that understand, having familiarity for people. I think helps. I think that's the best way to say that.
I got you. My partner's cooking and it's like fucking me up how good this shit
It does
smells
smell really good.
I've been staying calm for the last 20 minutes. Man, that smells good. And I got to go to the gym after we're done talking for like 2 hours. So I'm just going to be in there starving, just angry and hungry. All right. So where can the people find you? This your camera right here. You just let folks know who you are.
Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Spill at Yogi the Shooter, like Yogi the Bear, but the Shooter. YOGITHESHOOTER. My website is Respect the Shooter. RESPECTHE Shooter. You can also find me and my work at A Dirty Magazine on Instagram and Twitter, at adirtymagazine.com.
This morning, 15 minutes into me waking up, I got a call from my fam saying, hey, call me when you can ASAP, right? I picked up the phone and the call was about a young lady never met me before who's dealing with suicidal ideation.
Sheesh.
Right? And she described the situation to me. She told me about the young lady's mother, what happened and everything else. And as much as my heart went out to her, I'd tell my homie, hey, I'm glad that you reached out to me and, you want me to do what I can for her, but I just want to let you know this isn't my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
The work that I do is to build up, creating a space for people to mitigate getting to that place and using all the breaks to create a better environment when it comes to the community, wellness, and therapy. And you should have picked up the phone to call me 5 months ago when you guys first saw the sign and introduced me to her so I could have built a relationship with her.
For sure.
Because now when I pull up tomorrow to talk to her, I'm going to be a stranger that's talking to her about something so vulnerable and personal.
For sure.
And even if we do get her therapy, right now you're calling me because she's a risk, and my work doesn't deal with those that are a risk to themselves and others.
For sure.
I don't have the capacity for that.
For sure.
That's a 911 call.
For sure.
And y'all called her on her day off so you and the other manager could pay attention to her and make sure she's good. And then I have to pull up to her tomorrow at her job to facilitate her having a real conversation with me about something that she only has talked to both of you about.
For sure.
And she's supposed to trust me.
For sure. It's hard.
What?
It's hard. So that's an uphill battle if I've ever heard one.
Ah, man, I have a lot of uphill battles. This isn't going to be the first call about someone struggling, and this isn't going to be the last, but you can't be upset about what you asked for.
For sure.
You feel what I'm saying?
For sure.
So I know that feeling.
Yeah.
If there was one piece of advice you wish you would have gotten with the work that you do and with where society is now, what do you think that piece of advice would have been? Because you technically advocate for vulnerable spaces with the work that you've done.
One piece of advice. I would say that what we do as photographers is a craft. It's ever evolving, it's ever growing. and it's always creating space from where you are to its highest potential. So especially if I had to tell my younger self, I would say, like, do as much as you can to learn as much as you can. Because I made a lot of mistakes along the way, fumbled a lot of bags along the way. Ruined and wasted a lot of clients' money along the way. Because I was comfortable where I was in relation to the highest potential of the art and the craft.
That's a damn good piece of advice. I think, I've done all those things.
Yeah.
I've done all those things. It's, mistakes are necessary to grow. If I would have done all this growth without mistakes, I don't know if I would have been the man that I am today.
Fair enough. Yeah. That's also a very fair thing. Like, yeah. Like we said earlier, you end up where you're gonna end up anyway. So
Yeah, you'll get there.
yeah.
You'll get there like, damn, I didn't have to sacrifice all those things. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
All right, well, with that being said, this has been another episode of Mental Health Monday. Appreciate you homies for pulling up, partaking in the convo. Hopefully, you get to like, subscribe, share. I always mess up that end part.
Smash the like,
Smash the like, subscribe, share. I'd be like, yo, where did they get this energy to say that every time? But yeah, it's been another episode of Mental Health Monday. Definitely a special one. Looking forward to having more combos like this. But in the meantime, have a good night, homies. Peace. Oh man, that was a great talk.
That was good.
Yo,